Hope everybody's had an okay morning, and no special Sunday school. We're just going to stick with what we've been doing, but do have some Mother's Day orientated messages both this morning and tonight, and trust they'll be a blessing for you. But last week and I'm just going to say a few things today. We've been looking at the politics in the Bible, and we've been focusing on economics, and I'm going to finish that for just the first few minutes today. There's a couple other things that I just didn't really feel like getting into too much, but we talked about Social Security. I'm just going to make we'll talk about that a little bit, and then we're going to change gears and get into the environment, all right, and we begin to look at what the Bible has to say about the environment. And so, but with regards to Social Security, just kind of recovering or regrouping or reviewing, I should say, that, really, it started back in the 30s, and at that time it only collected 2% of the income. Now it's up to 12.4%, so obviously it's grown a lot. And in the 30s, when it was started, only 6% of the population was over 65, and there were a lot of surpluses, and so they started giving away more benefits, but things have changed. Now, today, that there are, let's see, in 2000, that there were 35 million over 65, and in 2030, it's be estimated there'll be 72 million people over the age of 65, or roughly 20% of our country's population. The key stat you want to look at with Social Security is the number of recipients compared to the number of workers. So the way they break this down is how many recipients do you have per 100 workers, all right? So back in 1945, you had 2.5 recipients of Social Security for every 100 workers. By 2030, it is estimated that there will be 36 recipients for every 100 workers, and so that is a significant jump. And we talked about how that, according to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, that this year of 2021, that the Social Security Trust Fund will begin to pay out more than it is taking in, and that it is estimated that this trust fund will be depleted by 2035. When that trust fund is depleted, then Social Security would only be able to offer an estimated 79% of its current benefit. And so it's not that it'll just go away, it's just that it'll be about 80% of what they're currently doing. And so let's, I want to give you some conclusions about Social Security, and we're going to look at the Bible and what it says. And these, again, we're not campaigning for policy, we're just looking at things from a biblical perspective. And look, in this world, there are going to be problems, and things aren't going to be done the way they ought to. When Jesus comes, he'll have it all figured out. But we should be knowledgeable so that we can have good discussions. But so some conclusions about Social Security. If a paying healthy, what is Social Security doing? In some instances, not every, all right, but in some instances, it is paying healthy, potentially productive people not to work, right? Which that drains the life and vitality out of an economy. The idea that a healthy, productive people should retire at 65 and no longer contribute to the economy, that is not found in the Bible. That is not a biblical mandate. There's nothing in the Bible that states this. In fact, let's do this. Let's look at some passages. Let's all turn to 1 Thessalonians 4. We're going to look at passages both in 1 Thessalonians and 2 Thessalonians. So let's go to 1 Thessalonians 4. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, and let's look here at verse 10, all right? Who would like to read for me? Rosemary, can you read verses 10 through 12? All right, so in verse 11 there, it tells us to do your own business and to work with your own hands as we commanded you. Now, the question here is this: when are you supposed to stop that? I mean, well, either A, you don't, or B, you can't, or C, you don't have to. But you don't have to, is that really a biblical basis? As I read this, God tells us to work. And there's no arbitrary age that says stop. Now, we can take other principles, okay, and develop it that if you physically can't, that's not what this is talking about, all right? Obviously, if you physically can't work, then you can't, and you should be taken care of. But to just arbitrarily pick an age that says, okay, you're done, is not biblical. There's nothing in the Bible that supports that. Now, I'm not saying that people can't do that. I'm just saying when it comes to the Bible doesn't tell us at 65 we're done. Think about this from a pastor's perspective. Should pastors just retire at 65? I don't think so. Yeah, Jen, you didn't hear it. Jen said, no, you can never retire. But she said I'd be annoying. It's true. No, here's the thing, is that pastors that are in their late 60s and 70s, even up in their 80s, they're older and maybe they can't physically do the work, but they're a great resource of wealth and knowledge and wisdom. They shouldn't be retired. They should be helping people as much as they possibly can because they have a lot of insight and wisdom that younger guys don't. So I'm not saying people can't retire. I'm just saying it doesn't tell us, and just so no one misunderstands me, that doesn't mean you can't go from one thing to another. In other words, like, yeah, you know what, I'm done with this job. Fine. But that doesn't mean you sit home and watch daytime TV all day. You see what I'm saying? You've got to go do something else. I'm glad Ron and Joyce are here. All right? Now, Ron, how long have you been retired for? 91. 98. So that is 23 years. Ron has been retired for 23 years. Okay? Now, in the 12 years that I've known Ron, the man is a busy man. He is going here, doing this. He is working. He's always got something going on, all right? And now what has been going on may shift, all right? It's changed. He, might be in years gone by, he's doing his, work projects. Right now there's a lot of medical appointments, so they're doing different things. But the point is that Ron's always doing something. Ron doesn't stay home and watch Days of Our Lives, all right? He's moving. He's doing things. Now, Joyce, you still volunteer, or you were volunteering. Are you still doing that? No, I still work. You still work, all right? So Joyce works so she can buy grandkids gifts, all right? That's that. She works just so she can buy. But so she. What I'm saying is that Ron retired from a good career, all right, and is busy. So I'm not saying don't, you got to go to something else. And something else might be paid, it might not be paid, but you want to be productive. You want to do something. Because people that do nothing don't do well. All right? Now, sometimes people have jobs they love. They like doing them. And I don't feel that you should have to retire at 65. And I know you can go into your 70s, but literally there comes a point at around age 72 where if you don't retire, you're actually costing yourself money. And I've talked with people, they're like, I'm in perfectly good health. I love what I do. Why would I stop? And then once you go on Social Security, you can't work above a certain amount. And to which I say, for some that works wonderfully because with our Christian school not paying salaries, we'll give you something to do. But or low income. But I want you to look over 2 Thessalonians. 2 Thessalonians, and look with me at chapter 3. Can I get another reader? It's a lengthy passage. I'd like someone to read. Steve, thank you. 2 Thessalonians 3, read verses 6 through 12.
Now we command you chargeable to any of you, not because we have power, but to make ourselves an example unto you to follow us. For even when we were with you, this we command you, that if any would not work, neither should he eat. For we hear that there are some which walk among you disorderly, working not at all, but are busybodies. Now them that are such we command and exhort by the Lord Jesus Christ, that with quietness they work and eat their own bread.
So in verse 10 we see that that if any does not work, they should not eat. And then it talks about the effect of not working in verse 11, that basically there's people get caught up in a bunch of gossip because they're not working, because they got a bunch of time on their hands where they got nothing to do, and they're getting into trouble. And so basically he's saying work. And again, there's nothing wrong with the idea of, let me say this, there's nothing wrong with having the idea of having a support system for people who are no longer able to work due to age. I mean, at a certain point, you just can't do it. Disability, involuntary unemployment. In other words, sometimes people want to keep working and no one will hire them because they're of their age. That happens. It's like, man, I would like to work, but they just, they don't want me. And so, but listen, it is foolish to pay billions of dollars a year for retirement and medical benefits for people who are healthy, skilled, and experienced, and are perfectly able to do the work and bring in benefit to the economy for many years after 65. So the entire system is burdened by a flawed idea that which is economically wise and theologically unsupported. And here's the problem. It's maintained by the government, even though it's a broke system that's rapidly heading towards not working. So why do they keep it? Well, it's simple. You change it, you're not getting reelected. Because you have a huge voting bloc that wants it, so anybody who changes it won't get reelected. But in the end, it's heading towards something that's not going to be it won't work long term. The second conclusion is that the system is deceptive. It was originally set up. Basically, it was originally set up that you were paying in for yourself, right? You're setting aside money for yourself. That was how it was presented, but that's not how it functions. Now you're taking care of those that are retired. That's how it is now. So it was set up differently than it is. Thirdly, the entire Social Security system contains massive, wasteful transfer of money from hardworking people to non-working people, many of whom have no need for this money. Now, there are some who do, don't get me wrong, but there are a lot who don't. And so there are people getting money, they don't need it. They have no need for it. So the system is going bankrupt, and you have large numbers of people who are getting it who really don't need it. Now, there are people who do, but there's a lot who don't. And it's hard if you're one of the people who are like, man, I'm on a fixed income. I need my Social Security. I know that. But I'm just telling you, there's a lot of people out there who don't need it, who get it, and it's literally throwaway money. It means nothing to them. So we're paying people, we're taking hard. So you that are working, that are having Social Security taken out of your paycheck, it is being given to somebody who's not working, many of which who don't need it. That's the issue, is we're taking money from people who need it and giving it to some people who don't need it. And another observation is that we have to ask the question, is it right for the government to provide some kind of guaranteed support when they no longer are able to work? And I would agree that it is, due to old age, disability, or involuntary unemployment. And it would make sense to provide provisions for partial benefits to people who want to take a semi-retirement. In other words, it's kind of an all or nothing. So, like, if you take Social Security, you can't, and forgive me, I don't know the numbers, but you can't make above like $19,000 a year or something like that. Well, what about the person who's making like $100,000, $200,000 a year with a good job, who's paying taxes, and they're coming up on an age where they're like, I like my job, but man, the hours are a little tough. I'd like to just and I have the flexibility of scaling back. The problem is they can't because they make too much money. So you run into this scenario where it's either they have to work full-time and not collect, but it's wearing on them, or they take the Social Security, but now they can't do the job that they love anymore, that they could put in a solid 25, 30 hours a week and still be paying taxes on that good amount of money. Their salary would come down some, and Social Security would offset it a little bit, so they would be taking a partial retirement, but they can't do that and collect Social Security because the government won't let them. So all you could do is just go get a minimum wage job. That, for a lot of people, it's just like, why bother? So there's nothing in there for that, which would make sense to have that because it would fund more money and would give more money to the government. So these are just some thoughts. So again, why doesn't it change? Because no politician who changes is going to get elected. You said, what will the future be? I don't know. I have no idea. I would say there will probably be something. Will it be the full benefit? I don't know. Now let me just say this. All right, given the current. Now that's the system. Now let's take this down. Unless you make good money, all right, and you're in good health and like your job, but if you're scraping to get by, and I've counseled several people on this, man, when you're 62, if you're struggling to get by, it's worth taking. I mean, if you're working minimum wage jobs and struggling, it's worth taking because you're going to get X number of dollars. And here's the point. If you're only making $20,000 a year or whatever, and you're barely getting by, well, man, you take Social Security, you can still make that money. You're really going to like double your income. And you say, but I'm losing. Listen, you're not getting the full benefit that you would wait if you waited till 62 or 72. Sorry, I understand that. However, when you do the math out of what you would get full benefit versus taking it day one that you're available, all right, when you do the math out, it's like literally, I forget, there's a magic number, but it's like 70, you'd have to live from the time you're 62 into your mid-70s before you start losing money. Because every month you don't take Social Security, that money's just gone. So let's say it's $1,000, just round number. So every month you don't take it, you just lost $1,000. To gain down the road a few hundred more. Let's start doing the math out. It's like, wait a minute. So I'm losing $1,000 a month to gain 10 years from now, $200 a month. So you have to add up that $200 a month. How old would you have to be when it equals the amount of money you lost? All right? Now, if you have a good job, forget it. If you have a good job and you love your job, throw all this out. All right? Work. But if you're making $20,000 a year at minimum wage, you can still do that and collect Social Security. Now, I'm not saying, again, this is the system we have, and I'm trying to help God's people to be wise stewards of what they can. We're not changing the system, so we operate in it. Look, there's so much out there that how do I word this? This is weird. There's so much that benefits me that if I were in charge, I would change. All right? But I'm not in charge. So I'm going to take it and run with it, and I'm being perfectly obedient to the laws of the land. Now, I think it's stupid, but it's the reality. It's like the stimulus check. Do I think it's good? No. I think it's a horrible idea that it's going to cause inflation like you wouldn't believe, and we haven't even begun to see the ramifications of what our government has done. I think it's a horrible idea. But I don't make the rules, so I'll take the money. I'm redoing my bathroom. Ron's helping me. Ron's redoing our bathroom, and I stand there and hold things. And you know, so look, I don't agree with it. I'm not going to stand before God and be held accountable for the decisions our government leaders made. I'll pray for them, and Lord knows they need prayer, because look, if I, with limited intellect and understanding of economics, can see this is disaster waiting to happen, well, then the people who are in charge, they already know. All right? They already know. Interesting thing, I've had a couple people tell me this. I talked about how lumber has gone up literally almost 400% or 500%. It's not supply and demand. Plenty of supply. It's inflation, basically. And it's just manifesting itself there. And you watch, it's going to have ripple effects. All that money came in, just to make everything more expensive. And I was thinking about this. So all the money got given to for lack of a better term, to the people who have less money in the country. All right, there's a cutoff point. All right, so the people who had less money got it. And you know what they're going to do? Spend it. Do you know where it's going to go? To the rich people who don't need it. But they'll get it because they have all the businesses. And if the economy doesn't get better, anyhow, it's nonetheless. So, with that said, we're going to move on from economics, okay? Because we're just, I don't want you to be bitter, okay? It's just be knowledgeable of what's going on out there. Social Security, we can talk about health care, we can talk about different things. We talk about how to restart an economy. Basically is drop taxes. That's kind of not get rid of them. I don't think you should do that, but just drop taxes, particularly on the more elite rich, because they do a lot. They have a lot of money that they can put into the economy, and that's usually the best way to start things, which we've seen over and over. I mean, every time a president does tax cuts, what happens? The economy does better. That's amazing, isn't it? And when taxes increase, what happens? Eventually, the economy slows down, and so it's just this cycle. But we're going to get into the environment now, and so let's go to the book of. Well, actually, I'm going to have several readers here. I need 3 readers to start who'd like to read for me. All right, Kim, Genesis 1:31. I need a second reader who'd like to read for me. All right, Yvette, Genesis 2, verse 15. I need a third reader. Sue, Genesis 1, verse 28. All right, and so what we're going to look at beginning today is the biblical teaching on the environment. What does God have to say about the earth and the environment? And we're going to have a balanced approach on the environment. And so what we're going to see first is that in the creation, the original creation, everything was very good. So Genesis 1:31, Kim, if you could read that, I'd appreciate it.
And God saw